Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council. It is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to consider and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. Actions taken tonight on conditional use permits are final, unless appealed to the City Council in writing within 5 days. And any actions taken tonight on final development plans, design review, or minor amendments are final. Any recommendations made on preliminary subdivision plan requests tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the third council meeting of this month, or at the first council meeting of next month if associated with a rezoning or major amendment. Any recommendations made on zoning requests, major amendments, future land use amendments, or ordinance amendments tonight will be referred to the City Council for final action at the first council meeting of next month. Council meetings are held at 7 p.m. here in the Carnegie Town Hall and are televised. The Planning Commission will first approve the consent agenda and then the regular agenda. In order to place certain non-controversial items on the Commission's consent agenda, planning staff and the Planning Commission apply the following criteria. First, the request conforms with the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Second, planning staff recommends approval of the request. Third, there are no audience members present or written comments received in opposition to the request. And fourth, the application meets all conditions and requirements of the Sioux Falls zoning ordinance. For the regular agenda, the following normal public hearing procedure will be followed for each item. By first requesting planning staff to present a brief report on that item. Second, the petitioner or representative will be requested to come forward to make a statement or answer questions. After the petitioner has spoken, anyone from the audience who wishes to address the agenda item shall be recognized. Then, the Planning Commission will discuss the matter further and take appropriate action. We ask that anyone addressing the Planning Commission move to the podium microphone, identify themselves for the record. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask you that you please either turn off or silence your electronic devices. This meeting is being televised on Channel 16 and will be rebroadcast Saturday at 10 a.m., Tuesday at 7 p.m., and Wednesday at 1 o'clock a.m. Thank you for your cooperation. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Planning Commission. We will begin by reading the consent agenda. Item number 1 of the consent agenda is approval of the August 3rd, 2011 minutes. Item number 2 is plats. Item number 3 is a rezone from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the O Office District for allowed uses. Item number 4 is the C4 Plan Commercial District to construct a telecommunication tower and facility at 2910 and 12 East 26th Street. Item number 5 is a conditional use permit in the C2 General Commercial District to construct a telecommunications tower and facility at 1300 East 10th Street. Item number 6 is a conditional use permit in the I-1 Light Industrial District to allow an automotive storage garage, vehicle sales, and truck repair at 1812 North K Avenue. Item number 7 is a conditional use permit in the I-1 Light Industrial District to allow motor vehicle display and sales at 315 East Maple Street. Item number 8 is a conditional use permit in the C2 General Commercial District to allow auto repair, sales, and display at 423 South Minnesota Avenue. Those are the items on the consent agenda this evening. Are there any objections from the audience to any item listed on the consent agenda? Staff?
Madam Chair, Steve Randall, Planning Office. Petitioner for item number 8, petition 2011-0805, has requested that their application be withdrawn.
Okay, item number 8 is withdrawn. Anything else? Meredith is stepping down for the consent agenda. Are there any objections from the Planning Commission members to any items on the consent agenda? No? Being none, I will seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Consent agenda passes. We'll move to the regular agenda. Item number 9. If your item was on the consent agenda, you're free to go this evening. Item number 9, Steve.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Steve Randall. I'll be representing staff on this item and others this evening. Item 9 is a request from Don Dunham and Diamond Valley Development for residential townhome rezoning. It's a 23-acre site, and it's currently zoned in 2 different districts. One is the Diamond Valley Planned Development District, and the other is RS2, Single Family Residential District. Petitioner is seeking the rezoning for the purpose of residential development as shown by exhibit. And we have an exhibit included in your information packet and will be on the screen this evening, showing how the subject area will be is proposed to be redeveloped. And the purpose of the redevelopment is for new four-plex townhome development as well as twin home development in the district. The development concept plan indicates a total of 42 twin homes and 92 townhomes for a total of 134 dwelling units and a gross density of 5.8 dwelling units per acre. The adjacent development is currently underway with single-family residential to the east, and there is existing twin home, single-family attached housing to the north and to the west. A number of those residents, I believe, are here this evening to express their comments to you. I'm going to go through the staff report and refer to the requirements of the zoning districts that are proposed. In the proposed RD residential development district, twin homes are certainly allowed as a permitted use. Conditional uses would include up to a fourplex. And we also have an item on the agenda this evening for a portion of that area that is being rezoned for conditional use for fourplex development. And we'll get to that later in the agenda. Located west of 69th Street and west of South Cliff at East 73rd and South El Dorado Avenue, currently the subject property is vacant. Physical characteristics include the site ready for development, and proposed location along West 77th Street and south of the proposed development, there is a drainage area. Concept plan indicates compliance with the RD district zoning requirements for setback, lot size, lot frontage, and landscaping. Single lot placement of 4 attached units will require 1 tree for every 50 feet of frontage to be planted in the front yard setback. Continued development of twin homes in the former PD is not affected by the proposed rezoning. Other than that, there is a new street layout being proposed. Primarily, there are 2 private roads running north-south in the planned development district into the proposed rezoning area that are proposed to be cul-de-sac rather than run straight through, and a portion of that made public streets instead of private streets. That would be the portion in the existing planned development district that is being rezoned to conventional RD. Proposed development of fourplex townhomes is confined to a loop road, South El Dorado Drive, south of West 73rd Street and next to the wetland open space, and a drainage detention area for the subdivision. A conditional use permit would be required for development of those units. RD district density, parking, and setback regulations would apply. The developer would be changing their subdivision plans, the final engineering plans, to accommodate the development concept as shown on the screen. That does not require a public hearing. A major amendment to the approved subdivision plan is not required, and the revised layout of streets, lots, and blocks being proposed for the rezoning could be accomplished administratively. The applicant should provide a revised initial development plan for Diamond Valley Plan Development District to the zoning office for publication in the city zoning ordinance, and that could be accomplished anytime between tonight and the effective date of the rezoning. Because the proposed density of development is similar to that in the existing zoning districts, and Four-Plex townhomes require a conditional use permit, subject to your review, in the new zoning district, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning. In the addendum to tonight's meeting, we have included a letter from neighbors and also a signed petition expressing concerns about the proposed rezoning and the effect on their planned development district, private covenants and deed restrictions, and any agreements in that district. Staff has met with those folks and indicated to them where the city does not enforce private agreements between developers and landowners, and it would be up to them to work with the developer to settle those differences of opinion. And that we did get also calls from people, individual homeowners in the single-family zoning district to the west. I don't know if they're here this evening or not. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions of Steve?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Steve, on that map that's up, could you mark the boundary of the existing PD?
Okay. It's a little easier, to show, and I think it was just referenced as the gray area, which would be, there's 4 cul-de-sacs in the upper left corner of the concept plan. The bottom 2 are the portion of the PD that is being rezoned to conventional zoning.
So it's not the entire PD that we're talking about, it's just that portion to the south?
Just that portion of it, yeah.
Okay. The packet did not include a copy of a development plan for that PD. Does this reflect what that was?
Yes, with the changes shown.
With the changes.
The 2 cul-de-sacs being now public streets instead of private roads, and terminating rather than running through north to south.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's the same.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Madam Chair, to follow up with Meredith, you showed a map right in the beginning with yellow, that one right there. Everything in gray was started out as a PD. Could you explain to everybody what a PD is, some of these folks here?
Sure. Planned Development District is a zoning district that accommodates a mix of uses primarily. A lot of times it's a mix of residential densities that in conventional zoning you would not be able to put next to each other, but by using innovative design techniques and layouts of streets, blocks, roads, landscaping, and just a general subdivision layout that makes it fit together, the planned development can be enforced through sub-area regulations that are published in our zoning ordinance. Those sub-area regulations a lot of times will indicate or even general architectural character of development. In this particular case it does not, but it does refer to landscaping requirements and also to density in terms of underlying zoning districts. The underlying zoning districts in this particular PD did go up to RD, which would allow twin homes, and the twin homes do not then require final development plans for review by the Planning Commission. Otherwise, any density higher than a duplex or a twin home would have to come to you at a public hearing, and the neighbors would have an opportunity to comment on that. We haven't seen much of that in this particular planned development district because everything was laid out and approved ahead of time.
So the gray portion that's in a PD, the developer was required to show a preliminary plan. Zoning was assigned, or what his request was for zoning. So what we're talking about right now basically is this gray box. And what had the developer assigned or asked for zoning for that particular gray box?
Twin homes.
Twin home. That would be an RS2.
RS2 in a conventional zoning district by conditional use, but in a planned development district, there's no further review required. They can go ahead and just build the twin homes.
The yellow portion.
The yellow portion is single-family residential district, which does not allow any more than a twin home, but would allow a twin home by conditional use. Again, a public hearing would be required to put in more than a single-family house in the yellow district. It would not allow fourplexes. The developer would like to rezone to RD, which allows the twin homes by right, but also fourplexes by conditional use. And the concept plan reflects that.
The yellow portion is not part of the PD.
That's correct.
Right now, the zoning on that yellow portion is RS1,
RS2.
RS2. And so the request is to leave that RS2, leave it conventional. No,
The request is to rezone that to RD,
to RD.
as well as the gray portion to RD. And that would be a conventional zoning district, which would allow twin homes to be built right away, but anything more than that, like a fourplex, would have to come back to you for conditional use. And we do have one of those this evening later in the agenda.
So at that point, he would need to, if he was going to build a fourplex there, the neighborhood would have a chance to have some input as to the fourplex, type of fourplex. In other words, we'd have to grant a conditional use for
That's correct.
anything more than a twin home.
That's correct.
Thank you, Stephen.
Any additional questions of Steve? Thank you, Steve. Is the petitioner here, please?
Thank you. Hi, Don Dunham, 230 South Phillips Avenue, and I'm the developer out here. And I'm sure you've seen this, or maybe you haven't. I used to bring these big boards, and you guys didn't seem to like those, so I brought this. It's easier to carry. But all we want to do is take, right now we have 139 units that are approved in the planned development that he talked about for Diamond Valley Townhome Association. And so consequently, what we propose to do is reduce that to 101 units. This is the fourth project we've done like this. We had 85 in the first one, 76 in the second one, 86 in the third one, and we had 152 when we started this. We're down to 139 because we took a lot of the lots that had double-car garages and platted them to work for three-car garages because we found a lot of demand for that. But the real point is that the duplexes that would be built adjacent to the Diamond Valley townhomes would start at 200,000 and probably go up to 300,000. They would be very similar to the townhomes that are there now. It's just that they would not be part of the association, and they could mow their own yards and they could live happily ever after without an association to answer to. And we're finding a great deal of people who like that sort of living. And also we're finding that the longer we're building out here, the more competition we're becoming to the people who actually live out here and want to sell. We've got 4 or 5 homes for sale out there right now, resales, and we're the biggest competitor for them. So all I'm saying is that, and they're a competitor for us. But the point being is that with the market decline, the way it's been over we started this 6 or 7 years ago, and with the market decline, it may take us 20 more years to fill up the 139 units. So what we did, we came up with a way to actually put cul-de-sacs in here on Cimarron and Monterey, and which should enhance the value of those to the people already living there, and of course to us, for people that want to live there. And the 2 cul-de-sacs that are going to be on public streets rather than private streets, those are very nice lots, and we're very excited about it.
Any questions?
This was approved for duplex lots over here, this part right here. These are four-plex lots over here. These are single-family here, these are single-family, these are single-family, these are duplexes down here. This is a 96-unit apartment complex here. These are all fourplexes on Santa Rosa right there. I'm sorry, was there a question?
That was mine. Is there any questions of Don?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No? Thank you, Don. Before we hear from anybody in the audience on this item, can I get a show of hands of who's here for this particular item? Okay, so there's a large group of you. Obviously, we don't have time to hear from all of you tonight, so I don't know if there's a spokesperson for your community or association. We want to hear new comments and new information to bring forward, and we ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes just in order to keep it moving. So we'll take the first member of your group that would like to come forward to address item number 9. Come on down.
My name is Gary Kaplan, and I'm a homeowner. My wife and I are in the Diamond Valley Townhome Association, and I am representing the group here in these comments. And we have had some very good discussion, both verbally and written correspondence with Mr. Dunham, and we appreciate that, as well as from Mr. Randall and his staff, and that's all been very helpful. One question that I would have at this point, and I'm not even sure it's applicable, but since Mr. Dunham kind of referred to it, I thought it was appropriate to bring it up. In our initial correspondence to Mr. Dunham, I'm talking about the area now where Mr. Dunham referred of taking out of, potentially reducing the number of association units. And we did ask the question if it's to remain twin homes, duplexes, if in fact that, well, Mr. Dunham indicated to us that if this area were sold, it would be to individual builders who would have to abide by the Diamond Valley covenants, bylaws, and restrictions. And we got that correspondence from Mr. Dunham on September 1st, and on September 2nd, we sent a letter back to Mr. Dunham asking for clarification on that last sentence. And our question is this: may we assume in that context, when you refer to Diamond Valley covenants, that you are in fact referring to the covenants for Diamond Valley Townhome Association? The reason being is there are some standards, and Mr. Dunham did indicate a range of $200,000 to $300,000 in the type of twin homes that tend to be popular. The ones in the Diamond Valley Townhome Association are a little, I'll say, more deluxe than that. And our question is, and it's all I'm asking for, I think the group is asking for, is an answer to that question, because I'm not sure it's something that you as the Planning Commission deal with.
And you're right, Gary.
That's all for now.
You're right. We're here to deal on land use and zoning issues. Covenants, though, are binding civilly. They're not entertained before this body this evening. So I think
Okay.
that is a question that you certainly need to get clarified with Don, but we can't help you, unfortunately, with any of that clarification.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
My name is Brad Mayer. I live at 6404 South Diamond Circle, which is smack dab in the middle of that area there up in the map. Diamond Circle is just north of 73rd Street there. You've indicated that you don't discuss any of the matters as far as covenants and things. When we purchased these lots, everything was laid out, including the area that's now being twin homes, as complete single family. Now, I understand as a developer, he's able to sell the land, he's able to do whatever he, more or less wants with the land. But when he's talking about putting in a four-plex complex with, I believe he said 139, was it, living units, is what's proposed there, with the only access to that entire area being 73rd Street off of Cliff Avenue, or coming south on Tomar off of 69th Street. That is a tremendous amount of traffic in which there is already a problem. Many of my neighbors on Tomar can attest to that. On the access to the fourplex units that lie to the south of 73rd, Tomar, and then even off the 73rd right now off of Cliff into that area is a tremendous amount of traffic. Speed is a problem blowing right through that intersection, and it's only going to increase with the amount of the density of the land use is going to only be more than was originally planned. We have small children. I know there's one other person from the cul-de-sac here. There are only 3 homes that are currently built. One is being built now. We have small children, and that's a major importance to us, is the traffic, and that is a huge concern for us. Obviously, home values and things like that are nothing of the concern of the board, but that is our big problem. That's one street to access that entire area that's proposed.
Hang on a second, Brad. Are there any questions of Brad?
Madam Chair, I don't really have a question, but I think what Brad's talking about would be addressed in the next item, the conditional use for the fourplexes. Not necessarily, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, as a part of the discussion on zoning.
Zoning can take into consideration access and traffic patterns. It's primarily part of the subdivision plan that Kenny mentioned was approved as part of the planned development district. So this particular layout was approved at one time by this body and also the city council.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of Brad? Thank you, Brad. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on item number 9?
My name is Jimmy Naser. I'm a homeowner here with my wife, Jolene. We recently bought a home in the Diamond Valley area, and we were sold it as a single-family residence. We built it to specs that were in the guidelines, and I know we're not here to talk about the guidelines, but we came into the area seeing single-family everywhere in the area. That's why we came there. Now they're increasing traffic, they're increasing the number of people. It's all going to run by our house. Our home value, I highly doubt it's going to go up when fourplexes start coming in. And, those are real concerns for us. Is people are probably competing with Dunham to sell the home because they don't want to live in that area anymore. That's a concern. We've invested our whole home. That's where we live now. That was the whole idea when we moved there. This is concerning to us. And so I think you get my point, so I'm not going to ramble, but that is a concern my family has, as well as the other neighbors we've talked to.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Naser? Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I say a few things?
Okay. Come on back, Don.
I'd just like to clarify 3 or 4 things that have been brought up. One, and Mr. Naser's a good friend, and we built his house for him, but he's about 500 feet from the duplexes that we were building over on Platinum Valley Townhomes, and he's probably 700 or 800 feet from the duplexes that are down on 73rd Street. So I would question whether and he's clear up on the cul-de-sac on the end of Diamond Circle, so I would question whether anybody's going to be up there driving around to get to work. But also, there apparently was some confusion, and I mentioned that to Steve, this Steve here tonight, Randall, but we had not intended at this time, and I don't know how that got on the agenda, but Bonnie from my office, I'm sure, did it, but we had not intended at this time to ask for our for a conditional use for the fourplexes down there on those streets. We just wanted to go to duplex RD at this time,
Okay.
and I just wanted to clarify that. Yes. I was withdrawing that conditional use for those fourplexes because we don't know in the future. Those could be single-family houses yet. All we wanted to do is get the protection to have duplexes or more in the future if that's what the market indicates.
So you're looking to withdraw item number 12 then?
I don't know the item number. Yes.
Okay.
And I'd just like to make one thing in closing, you know. When we built those $500,000 and $600,000 homes on Tomar, we built duplexes right across the street from them. Most of them were in that $200,000 range, and it didn't hurt us selling those on Tomar at all. Now, that was 5 or 6 years ago when the market was a lot better. But today, you have to look at what the market wants. And I can't look into a crystal ball, but at the same time, this project's worked very good. I think the townhomes that we built for the Diamond Valley Townhomes people are very nice, and I think these cul-de-sacs and all that enhances their project rather than hurts it.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair, I think I have a question for Steve.
Sure.
Steve, regarding the connectivity for the roads, do you have any comments on that as far as the concerns?
The concern, as I mentioned, was addressed at the time that the preliminary subdivision plan came in with the rezoning to a planned development district. And at that time, the density was lower. As we, over the years now, have increased density in the area, each time that happens, the engineering department takes a look at road capacity and so on, and has the opportunity to comment on those requests for increased density. And so far, in their evaluations anyway, recognizing there may be additional difficulty, it's not unreasonable to add that much traffic onto the road pattern that's been approved. They also realize that people living there, when they built, thinking that the traffic pattern was not going to get worse, would have concerns. But
Jeff Schmidt from planning staff. I'll just add to that. The issue really what we're trying to look at is connectivity between subdivisions. And when Dave is looking at this street going Tomar north, Tomar does go north across 69th Street into the development. You have 73rd Street going east, and that goes now into the USF campus. And then Tomar continues south, but it doesn't go anywhere because you don't have the development to the south. That's the same challenge we have on the west side because you have the golf course to the west. So the applicant, as well as the concerned citizens, are bringing the stated facts forward that there's just not connectivity out of this development yet because you can't go south and you don't go west. Therefore, you only have really 2 access points, but you do have connectivity. So we approved it because there was connectivity and it met minimum standards. Sometimes, developers will even come in and want more access points, but engineering only allows at the quarter mile, the half mile, and then the next quarter mile, 3/4, and that's what this one does have.
Jeff, before you sit down, Madam Chair, this will be a change in zoning.
Correct.
A change in zoning has to be approved at the City Council?
That's correct. So this would be going forward to a City Council hearing at a public hearing standard.
The portion that's in a PD, what would change in the zoning in that from PD to RD? What difference would that make to the developer?
That's a question for the developer, but from our standpoint, you wouldn't need final development plans. So in an RD, you could do a conditional use public hearing, but you wouldn't be doing final development plans. It really depends on what product they bring forward. Twin homes and townhomes would be allowed anyways in either one of the districts. Four-plexes would have had a final development plan or a conditional use.
In the RD, a four-plex would still need conditional use permit under the RD. A bigger structure, RD, I think everybody thinks multifamily.
Correct.
To put in a multifamily project in there would have to come back for a conditional use permit.
It'd be a rezoning request because these are single-family attached units. Even when you're talking four-plexes, They're single-family units. A single family lives in there, and they each own their property. So when you talk the apartment complex, like on the north side of 69th Street, that if there's 50, 60 units, even 90 units, those are multifamily complexes. We still consider fourplexes single-family.
We've had this conversation about PDs once they're developed out, removing the PD designation and going to the zoning that ends up being there.
Correct. So in this example, any of the Diamond Valley that was shown as gray, once the houses get built there, we rezone it to the most appropriate zoning district. So if they built all twin homes, we'd probably do an RD. If it was single family, we'd do it to an RS2 zoning district. And staff initiates it, has a public hearing here. But the properties get rezoned to the most appropriate district.
So the folks that are, everyone should have an opportunity to see what this was zoned.
Correct.
Particularly the, well, of course, it was RS2 was the approved zoning on the yellow. And what we're doing is changing that to RD.
Correct. And clarifying for both parties here tonight, what this zoning does is it allows the certain land uses within that district. So we keep generalizing and going to, well, if they build single family or twin homes, we're just changing the zone to allow types of uses. Later, at a future date, or never, if they came forward with a conditional use, it's what conditions does this body want to put on those uses that are already allowed? So it's kind of a two-step process we go there, but we don't put conditions on rezonings. You just say this is everything that could be possibly built in this district.
Thank you.
One more time.
Don Dunham, I would just like to add that the difference, Ken, I think I can answer your question, is on the difference between the duplexes that we're proposing here on the 38 lots that we'd be taking out of the homeowners association. We have different, the city has different requirements on front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks on all of these new lots that we're proposing because they're on a public street. And when we went in for our PD on Diamond Valley Townhomes, we actually, I think we have 7.5 feet to the lot line. We have a 0 lot line in the middle, you know, but we have a 20-foot, I think, front yard setback, and I think it's 25 or 30 for a duplex, a regular duplex. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of differences. But the city sets those. We don't.
But as a developer, doesn't a PD give you more flexibility?
Well, but you establish the PD at the time you get it approved. And so it's in the code book right now, and it identifies exactly what we can do. But the only PD on here is the whole development, I think, was a PD at one time. But I think that's falling out, as you pointed. The only one that's still intact, I think, is the one for the Townhome Association that has any variances for city codes. And that's the only reason you do a PD like that, or a townhome development, is to be able to get, maybe the homes a little closer to the street, like Celebration USA in Orlando, Florida, or something like that, you know.
Thank you, Don.
Okay. We'll close testimony on item number 9 and look for commission action.
Madam Chair, for the sake of discussion, I'd make the motion to approve item number 9.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and approval of item number 9 for discussion.
Madam Chair, I think I have a much better understanding now of what Mr. Dunham was attempting to do, and quite frankly, I like the layout that includes more cul-de-sacs when you talk about through traffic and hazardous situations. Cul-de-sacs do help that a lot. I also sense, in looking at this development plan, that there's going to be a significant buffer between the existing townhomes in the PD and the townhomes that you're developing immediately, I suspect, to the south. So this is a zoning change that I can support.
Thank you, Meredith. Anything else?
I want to, if I may, Madam Chair, I hear what you're saying. I always get concerned when the neighborhood shows up in the numbers that they have tonight. I hope everybody can appreciate some of the things we kind of struggle with here a little bit. I have been in the position Don's in tonight. I've done some developing, and sometimes things are zoned a particular way. People buy into the neighborhood, aren't aware of it, and have a tendency to blame the developer, and maybe there needs to be better communication with some of these things. It looks like a heck of a layout to me. I'm also going to support it, but I say that I appreciate you guys showing up tonight to voice your concerns. We deal with this occasionally. It's never pleasant. I think if we can get a development in there, if Don can develop these twin homes in that 2 to 3 range, I think it'll make a nice addition for you. I suspect some of you are concerned about some of the townhouses over by the church. I think they're nice projects. They're selling. They're a little bit more moderately priced. Having said that, the proximity of that might own to that just a little bit. I'm hoping that will, and Don's hoping that will get better as he develops this further in. So I hope you guys can understand that. Thank you.
Anything else? No. We have a motion and approval for item number 9. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 9 carries. Item number 10. Staff report. If you're here for item number 9, you're sure free to stay, but you are free to go as well. Since item number 12 has been withdrawn, we won't be entertaining anything on the southern part of that area tonight. Thanks for coming, folks. Have a good night.
Madam Chair, I'm going to sit down for this next item.
Commissioner Dunlap is going to step down for item number 10. We'll give you just a second to get cleared here. Hey, Dave,
That's what I got here.
okay. Steve, go ahead and you can start with the reading of item number 10.
Right, item 10 is also a rezoning application.
Will you speak into the microphone so we make sure that it gets on recorded loudly? Okay.
Item 10 is a rezoning from RD residential to a planned development district. Kind of the switch from this evening. We're going to a planned development instead of out development. And the applicant is Ron Weber for Elmwood Storage, LLC, for personal storage use. And sub-area regulations have been developed to provide compatibility with the use with the neighborhood. This is an application that you've seen before. When the request was for conventional zoning, there was staff concern about compatibility issues in the residential neighborhood for allowed uses. By going to a planned development district, the allowed uses are set. There is no question as to what uses are allowed and not, and the applicant has worked with the neighbors to come to some agreement on what those uses can be. It's a small site. It does not have any residential use on it. We have given it an incompatibility rating of 1 simply because that requires a planned development zoning. And in the planned development zoning, we can address the issues that made it a 1 rating. For non-residential personal storage use, the concern is that the property be adequately buffered, setback, constructed, designed to be compatible with the residential uses, and that any uses that are allowed in there would also be compatible. The sub-area regulations for A indicate uses permitted as only mini-storage, self-storage spaces designed and used for personal storage, and the purpose of renting or leasing individual storage space to tenants who have access to such space for the purpose of storing and removing personal properties. That limits the type of storage that's being allowed in there. It's not industrial, it's not construction type activity. And the second item, temporary storage facility, a structure containing separate storage spaces of varying sizes leased or rented on an individual basis, is primarily dealing with the issue if the existing structures were taken away and it were reconstructed or rebuilt, it would have to meet those specifications. Then it also allows single-family detached dwelling because the property could be recombined with residential uses in the neighborhood and used for residential purposes, and neighborhood utilities because that's an allowed use in the residential district. The residential district that we're referring to as an underlying district for conformance to setback, density, landscaping, signage, and so on is the RS2, which is single family, and that's primarily what the neighborhood is. Single family development, although it is zoned RD, and as being zoned RD could have a conditional use come forward for higher than a single family dwelling detached. It could be attached up to 4 units. Parking regulations are regulated in the RS2. Other regulations are listed here. The first one being no outdoor storage. That was one of the issues we were concerned about. Second one, no motor vehicle repair, auto body work, or motor vehicle sales and display. That was another issue. The third one being unlicensed or inoperable vehicles or trailers are not allowed to be parked on the premises. That was another issue. And then we are looking at future storage buildings being constructed with a pitched roof and a minimum slope of 412, trying to establish residential character for future improvements to the site. And finally, residential style lighting in conformance with the zoning ordinance would be required. And one more, if final development plans are required, it would be for all future primary structures after December 31st, 2011. That nails it down pretty good, I think, as far as staff is concerned, and the attorneys representing the applicant, and I believe the neighbors as well. The applicant should respond with any neighborhood comments that have come forward since that time. There are no proximities to consider as far as parks, open space, and schools, and the existing development with 2 structures is located in the 100-year floodplain, so it's unlikely that there would be redevelopment at the present time. Concept plan shows exactly what's there now. We are located in a neighborhood conservation area, and so this small a site in the floodplain and not really being redevelopment potential should pose no special problems as far as compatibility in the neighborhood goes. The City Council has presently deferred action on a previous rezoning request, and actually the applicant has withdrawn that request at the present time. So there is nothing on the table as far as conventional zoning goes. We have only the current application for a planned development district. Because the proposed zoning is made more compatible with adjacent existing residential zoning and use in an established neighborhood by the use of restrictive planned development sub-area regulations, staff is recommending approval of this rezoning. And we've had no contacts with neighbors. I take that back. I did have a call today. Up until today, we had no contact. I did have a property owner in the neighborhood call and express concern about what was being done. They may be here this evening and can ask that question, but they did not object when I explained it to them. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions of Steve? No. Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Mr. Weber? By now, we're really familiar with your story. So,
Okay.
third time's a charm.
We hope. Okay, what I'm here tonight is we withdrew our last petition.
Okay.
To the device of Jeff has been more than accommodating working with us on this, with Aaron Emerson, my attorney, to get this set. not only for as of right now, but to go forward so we protect the neighborhood. That is our main goal, just like all you want it. That's what I'm here for, just to turn it into a residential district plan development for allowed uses, for personal storage only. Jeff, like I said, has worked diligently. I thank him for that. I know there's probably been some other people here involved that have had their hands at stake of this. Steve, I know you worked hard on this. And I think we've come up with a very good proposal that should be allowed. You know, I walked the neighborhood. I gave you all the petitions. We do have one neighbor here tonight that maybe I know he talked to Jeff before the meeting. So if he has anything to say, that would be great.
Good enough. Thank you. Any questions for Ron? Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Is anybody from the audience here to speak on this item tonight? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, I'll look for commission action on item number 10.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 10 with the restrictions in place with the plan development. I feel confident that it's protecting the neighborhood, so I'd like to make that motion.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second on item number 10. Is there any further discussion? No. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 10 carries. Mr. Weber, we hope we won't see you next month. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is a deferred item from previous meeting agendas. For Timber Oak Estates, a preliminary subdivision plan, the applicant is Preston Metler, First Choice Development. The proposed subdivision plan is a revised street layout to a previously approved plan. It would not necessarily have to go to a public hearing, except by losing connectivity as one of the previous subjects of approval, it did require a reapplication as a preliminary subdivision plan. It's a 47.5 acre site. The existing zoning is a planned development, and the existing land use is single-family residential and vacant lots currently being developed. The compatibility rating is indicated as 5, compatible with the environment, or it's next to agricultural land, which is outside the city at the present time. The applicant is proposing 25 lots. Had 25 lots included in the plan before, and that has not changed with the proposed street layout. The preliminary plan was approved October 10th, 2007. As we look at the existing residential uses and what allowed uses with the planned development district that was established at that time in the sub-area regulations, the Planning Office determines that the preliminary subdivision plan application is in sufficient compliance, but there are specific design improvement or other compliance deficiencies. The Planning and Building Services Director may list conditions to the approval of the subdivision application to the Planning Commission. We have not listed any of those this evening. The Planning Commission has the opportunity to add those if they so wish to approve the plan. As a note of special information to the south, currently the Harrisburg School District has purchased property along West 5th Street south of the proposed plan and plans to annex it to the city for the purpose of rezoning and construction of a new elementary school and new middle school. That's information only. It hasn't happened. It's not a fact yet, as far as I know.
So they have not, excuse me, Steve, so they have not purchased the property.
I believe they have not. Okay, they have not purchased the property. They have indicated a desire to purchase the property.
Okay.
Correct? Okay. School districts. Planning considerations and analysis. Right now, South Quiet Oak Circle cul-de-sac does not conform with the lot and block sections of the subdivision ordinance. We've listed there the ordinance sections where there is non-compliance, and provisions should be made for a collector street every quarter mile, and there should be a street connecting adjacent subdivisions at intervals not less than a quarter mile where environmental constraints and land use considerations permit. The Second item would be streets should be designed to convey residents conveniently throughout the neighborhood and to the parks, schools, and shopping areas of the neighborhood and to adjacent neighborhoods. We fully expect in this growth area to be an adjacent neighborhood to the south. Staff suggests that if Quiet Oaks Trail is cul-de-sac, a connection should be designed in order to get the public to future community service uses to the south, because there will be some, whether it's a school or support services. And that's staff's primary concern with the recommendation for denial of the proposed subdivision plan.
Thank you. Any questions of Steve?
Madam Chair, Steve, is there a limit on the length of a street that
There
ends
is,
in a
in the
cul-de-sac?
subdivision ordinance, a limit to cul-de-sacs of 500 feet.
And how long is this?
This street measures close to 1,000.
Okay.
Madam Chair, there is some development currently going on here. As I look at this map, if I'm not mistaken, on Block 3, is there a house? I think there's a couple houses in there, if I'm not mistaken. Did you say this particular plan was zoned from agricultural to single-family in '07?
In a planned development district, that's correct.
In a planned development district. So he brought in a preliminary plan, was approved. What we're looking at now today is a final plan.
No, the final plan was also approved because they're making this change, which engineering considers to be a major change, that is disconnecting the subdivision from future subdivisions to the south. We feel that it has to be run through as a new preliminary subdivision plan. The only change is this cul-de-sac.
Wasn't a concern at the time the final plan was approved, but is a concern now.
The final was not approved for a cul-de-sac. Final was approved for a through street.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up.
And Madam Chair and Steve, if I may, the real question here is the connectivity, correct?
Correct.
So if this developer provided an alternative to the connectivity, we would forego the length of the cul-de-sac, which you're saying is longer than what is typically accepted, and we would reconsider it at that time? Is that correct?
The length of the cul-de-sac is a concern of the fire department and also city engineers, because they're the ones responsible for providing utility services and so on. Cul-de-sacs typically have problems with the utilities and infrastructure because of the length of the cul-de-sac. Shorter cul-de-sacs, you can get sewer and water in there and turn around or make another connection someplace, but a long one is a little tougher. So it really is an engineering issue and a fire protection, fire safety code issue. If those departments have signed off on longer than 500-foot cul-de-sacs, planning has typically not objected to that.
Thank you, Steve. Any additional questions of Steve?
Steve, to confuse a little bit here, aren't the infrastructure, the sewer and water already there on that street?
Well, I'd have to ask the developer if it's been installed or not, but that'd be a question for the developer.
Any additional questions of Steve? Thank you, Steve. Is the petitioner here, please?
Hi, my name is Preston Metler, 5104 South Barrington Drive. I am the developer. I understand that, we do understand that the city is not supporting our request for the cul-de-sac because it does not meet the current design standards of every quarter mile, every half mile. However, we do want to point out that the plan, the cul-de-sac was approved, and there's been questions about the length of it. It's been through engineering and then to the fire department. Everything's been approved except for the connectivity issue. There is not an issue of it being too long of a cul-de-sac or a safety issue. That has been addressed. The only issue left is this connectivity issue. Point I'd like to make on that, I do have a broader map of the streets in the area, which would help probably clarify some of that. And this is a bigger version, so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about here. When we went in originally, in preliminary plan was 07, the final plan was 08. There's a lot of land to the south. We end here now. South Dakota 100 is planned to run through this property to the south of here. And therefore, there will be no connections past 100, only at the mile lines. Louise Avenue's over there. This is the half mile. This is Western Avenue. So there was no traffic that's going to be allowed to go south of that point. Therefore, when we went in, we have large lots. We have a lot less traffic through here. Meredith Avenue, due to the wetland, is a constraint. The city did not want to cross it. It would be the major connection point to connect for the connectivity. So being they wanted connection, we agreed that we would do Quiet Oaks. It's Quiet Oak Place now, or Quiet Oak Street now, for the connectivity to the south. Because we were told that sewerability of this area is very limited because the topography drops drastically from here and the sewer comes from there and it's not deep enough to sewer much of that area. And also that the trunk sewer was not large enough to connect. They didn't design it to connect anything past this point. When Quiet Oak Circle was approved, it's a residential street width, which is 33 feet wide. The main collectors like 90th, Timber Oak Trail, Meredith, Regent Park that comes up to here, they're 39 feet wide. So they're built wider for a collector street. Now with you were informed that the school is wanting to buy this area and put school down here. Our concern is the safety of this street being not built to handle that kind of traffic, because at the time when we developed, it was limited development down here, and we were fine with residential development connectivity with the residential street. But with the change in use down there, that is our major concern. We did take some photos to kind of depict the width of the street there. I think Steve has those, showing some vehicles it gives you a visual of how much narrower the Quiet Oak is than Timber Oak Trail.
Well, and excuse me, and with respect to that, even if the street is more narrow, do you have an alternative answer, I guess, to connectivity? Well, I understand that you said you don't have it at this time, but...
Okay. The issue is to get the residents from here to this school. They can all come through to Western Avenue and come enter here. Mm-hmm. And coming down Meredith, can you say?
Right.
Coming down Meredith, you can get Regent Park and down to 95th. The school is, I understand from Jeff, that they are required to put 95th through in order for the school to be there. So there's connectivity all around this area. We have limited residences in here. Everything up to the north can go, everybody can get to where they need to go. I believe in item number 9, the whole west side of that had nothing to go to the west because the golf course was in the way. You know, there are things that block connectivity. Right. Did you find that? Oh, do you get that on your screens, I suppose?
Well, and I think we need to refer to it as potential school. You know, certainly nothing, it's a potential school. I mean, nothing is set in stone at this certain time. So,
and like I said, with the school, we were not opposed to it. I mean, with residences there, we are not opposed to it. With the school, we're very concerned about the safety of it becomes a shortcut for people to get to that school, and the street was not designed to carry that kind of traffic. It's a residential street, it's not a collector street. Although now it's being called a collector because there is no other street to connect.
And I think therefore is the question, can you provide another collector street?
I'm sorry.
There's the question, can you provide an alternative answer if you do choose to convert that to, that is converted to a cul-de-sac, what is the answer to another collector street? Is there another option? And I understand you may feel like there's not a requirement to provide that, but if we feel that there is there another answer to that solution?
I don't know of another way to get a street south, no.
Okay.
The curb gutter, I mean, everything's all in, all the utilities are in, all the lots are platted. It's hard to change that now and add another street.
Okay.
Any other questions for Preston?
Madam Chair, Preston, I'd probably not fair to ask you. I'll follow up with staff. Has anyone shown you a plan for this new school where they plan on putting it?
I have seen some preliminary drawings, yes.
Can you show me where it sits in
The plan is
relationship
put
to that?
The middle school butts to Western Avenue. I think there's a sporting complex between, and the grade school goes next to the middle school.
On one side of 95th or the other, I'm suspecting.
They'll all be south of 95th. This was preliminary drawing here. 95th will stay up here, so the school can all be south of that, and then it will come down and tie in. This does exist to here.
Okay, thank you.
And again, with the school all being south of 95th, there is no traffic that needs to go north through our development either. It can all go out to Western or to Regent Park and eventually to Louise to get out of the school area.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Preston? Questions, do you have anything else?
I do have a petition there are very few residences in here, but I do have a petition signed from all of them in support. Residents who live in this area that are in support of the cul-de-sac and not having connectivity through. If somebody wants this.
You can give that to Steve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I guess I have a question for Steve, if I may.
Oh, thank you. I do too.
Steve, we talked previously about minimum requirements for connectivity. If that is converted to a cul-de-sac, does that meet the minimum requirements?
It does not meet minimum requirements for our subdivision ordinance, but again, those things have been able to be reduced or waived through the public hearing process. And that's what Preston's talking about right now is there a hardship to the south where it doesn't need to have connectivity? We would still like to see that quarter mile, half mile, three-quarters mile. It also is very beneficial to us tonight to have the property owners to the north sign that petition and go on record that they're not in support of connectivity, so that they don't come back to this body or the city in the future and say, why can't we get to the south? So they've gone on record now saying that they're not going to be going to the south.
Jeff, have you seen any preliminary layouts of the proposed schools?
Yes, we've seen preliminary layouts of the Harrisburg School. I looked in my file. I have a napkin sketch of it, but it's not stamped or anything. And then back in April or May, they had a design trying to show the residential lots to the north of 95th Street. And then, as Preston explained very well, you have the middle school to the east, you have the campus for athletics in the middle, and the elementary schools to the west. But I haven't had anything in the last month.
Typically, city encourages the park department to participate in schools.
Yes.
Is that on the drawing board for this particular school?
When Kenny brought up a very good question that I wasn't expecting. Okay, so typically elementary schools are 20 acres. The school campus with parking lot would be a 10-acre site, and then the city park would be another 10-acre site. It works very well, and you see that all over Sioux Falls because then the kids can use the park ball fields during the day, and at nights the families from most communities go down to those ball fields as well as the playground equipment. On this site, Harrisburg offered up not only the elementary school, but the middle school land to the Parks Department, and Parks Department has turned them down more than once because this isn't in their service area. There's not enough houses in this area to serve a public park.
Staff is recommending denial.
Correct.
When I look at the map and see 95th going in, doesn't that ease staff's concern a little bit with access to that school via Western and 95th?
It does allow for that east-west traffic flow. Our concern continues to be property owners to the north trying to go to the south. And if this street gets cul-de-sac, they will not be able to go north and south. Anybody to the north would have to travel north, then go east to Western, south, and then back west. As well as we even put as a condition in there, if there's not a street connection, could there be a pedestrian connection? Because students would want to get to these elementary schools or these playground areas, and they would not be able to go through there unless they cut through people's yards.
I thought I was going to catch him on the neighborhood collectors. I think new schools and churches require, is it neighborhood collectors or is it a collector street?
It just has to be a collector street, so 95th Street is the collector. So Harrisburg meets that requirement that 95th Street has to be built.
So what staff would like to see is a neighborhood street to hook on to.
Correct.
95th.
Yes. No.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Jeff? Is there anybody from the audience here to speak on this item? We're going to let Mr. Van Buskirk come and then we'll hear from him.
Steve Van Buskirk, 5800 South Remington Place. We've got the subdivision immediately to the west, which is a Cinnamon Ridge subdivision, and we are not in favor of removing the street, I guess, because I think the biggest thing that we look at is, you can see it there off to the left, is all the traffic. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. It looks a little strange. Anyway, so all the 90th Street will connect up to Regent Park over there on the left side, my left side of the map anyway. And then that'll only leave one access point within the the Western Avenue, Louise Avenue, 85th Street area to get down to the school, unless people go out to Western Avenue. So I think there's an impact for our customers in the adjoining neighborhood, because there's 100 houses. I counted on one of the maps. I think maybe there's 100. I could stand corrected on that. Going 90th, and the rest are subdivision in the yellow going north. So there's quite a few houses in this that are coming in this neighborhood that are in this subdivision. And if that street is eliminated, then all those cars get to come through Cinnamon Ridge. So I think it's just a matter of sharing the traffic. We're supportive of the school. We want to see the school there. But I think the streets are there for everyone's use. The streets improved, paved right out to the edge of the road. It's all done, 100% done. It's there. It's ready to be used. I just don't think it's fair to the neighbors in Cinnamon Ridge to eliminate that access point. I think it's benefiting one group of people over another. Shed a little light on 95th Street. To the west of 95th Street, you can't see it there. Regent Park comes down as a full four-way intersection over there to the west of Carver Circle, if you notice Carver Circle on there. We've got a lot right up to the property line there, and our street, 95th Street, kind of goes through like it would connect on over to Louise. But somehow there's half the right-of-way was dedicated there, and the other half wasn't. But the part that was dedicated, one of the homeowners in the adjoining neighborhood went to the township and got it vacated. So 95th Street going through to Louise is not going to be a possibility anytime in the near future, because there is now absolutely no right-of-way for 95th Street to go anywhere out to Louise, which is unfortunate. I think it really hurts our traffic flow through the neighborhood. it'll help when the Western Avenue connection gets made, of course, but that won't be a relief. So anyway, I think it's just as far as a matter of fairness, I don't think it's proper to shut down one street and make the traffic go the other way.
Excuse me, Madam Chair and Steve, you're saying 95th will not go through to Western?
It's there's a rural
to
residential
Louise.
neighborhood
Okay, I'm
over
sorry,
there. Yeah, like right over that way.
Okay.
So we've built like 130 feet of street from Regent Park over to what was our property line over there, but basically one lot. And if you ever drove down there, it kind of runs right into a little garden shed is what it looks like it's running into. And half the right of way was there, and half of it was not dedicated. But the part that was dedicated right of way got petitioned and taken back into that lot. So there is no right of way for 95th Street to connect on to Louise. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's. The guy, apparently the guy, I've kind of heard some of the neighborhood stories, he has no interest in seeing that street go through, and I think by his action of, undedicating right away what the proper term is for that, I think his intentions are pretty clear. He doesn't want to see that go through. And I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it was like 2 years ago is my understanding.
Does Regent Park Drive connect to 95th?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, and see, that's what will happen is all that, the entire neighborhood, you're going to have two choices, Western Avenue or Regent Park, to get down to 95th Street to get to the school.
Okay.
So I think it's more appropriate to keep a street open, even though if it's not a collector street, it's still a neighborhood street, people can still get down through there.
Thank you. Any questions for Steve?
Madam Chair, Steve, I suspect as a developer you've had occasion from time to time to develop land on the edge of Sioux Falls, not knowing what was going to be done south of you or east of you or west of you, and then once you find out, you've probably thought maybe a cul-de-sac would be a good thing for your development as well.
I guess I can't think of any instances. I mean, we've got 95th Street stubbed out to the east. We're open to the school. I'm not asking the 95th Street to get turned.
No, I'm just suggesting that we can't have developers laying out a subdivision and then once they find out what their neighbors are going to do, deciding to change their streets because they don't want to engage or create the connectivity that the city wants or desires.
Well, yeah, I think that's the whole idea. There's been battles in the past before my time. I think that's why some of the ordinances exist, is trying to get these streets and the utilities to the property line so the city can continue to grow. There's a reason there's an ordinance there, I guess.
Thank you. Any additional questions of Steve? No. Thanks, Steve. Anybody else in the audience here to speak on this item?
My name is Joel McDowell, 8008 South Red Hill Circle. I live just a block out of Timber Oak in Cinnamon Ridge. A couple of points I wanted to bring up. I had the occasion to meet with Mr. Holbeck, superintendent of the schools, and he had made a comment when we discussed this, because we wanted to be good neighbors. I do the marketing for the development and had some concerns with the traffic down that street. And to Mr. Larson's point, really it is a point of safety where we were able to put a couple of vehicles on that non-collector street. It gets very tight. Mr. Mettler has agreed to do a walking path should it be cul-de-saced. That was a concern that was brought up. And I understand that I have 4 children, that if we get to Quiet Oak Trail, we can walk across, get over to the school. So that's one item I wanted to bring up. Mr. Holbeck, again, was neither for the cul-de-sac or opposed to the cul-de-sac. I gathered the impression that he felt with Collector Street being 95th coming off Western, and then access off of Louise on 90th down Regent Park to 95th should offer sufficient access to both the middle school and the elementary that are potentially going in there. That's it.
Any questions for Joel?
Madam Chair. Joel, I have been out there, but I'm sitting here kind of in a fog. Has this South Quiet Oak Trail been built?
Yeah, it's completely built, curb gutter, final lift, all utilities.
And it
are
has
in.
been built with a cul-de-sac?
No, it terminates at the half-section line.
Okay.
And again, the original thought was with South Dakota 100, someday going through, there would be some development down there, but it wasn't anticipated. And we understand things do change, that probably wouldn't have as heavy traffic pattern as what a school would offer. And as part of my civic duty, I'm the part-time junior assistant backup bus driver at Harrisburg. I turn those rigs down those streets, and I have firsthand experience. And even on Hughes over at Explorer, which is a collector, you get a pickup, a bus, and a small car, and it's tight. And on Quiet Oak, whether they do run buses down there or not, it would be nearly impossible just based on our exhibit, and that creates some concerns. And not only is it a more narrow street, not being collector, it is windy and it is hilly too, which is part of the allure of the development.
Do you have anything in writing regarding the walking path?
Nothing yet.
As far
Our
as an
meetings
agreement?
with Mr. Holbeck, we've met with him a couple times. Again, you would ask about solutions for other possibilities. Again, not opposed to where those schools will be. My youngest will go to middle school there, and that's a far cry better than me driving to Harrisburg 6 times a day. And so not opposed to that, but it was very preliminary in the meetings with him. We agreed, unwritten, to work together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
Anything else? No. Anybody else here to speak on this item? No?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I have a question for Jeff, if he'd be so kind as to... Jeff, when this final development plan came in, was this street built, South Quiet Oak Trail, was that designed as a residential street or a neighborhood collector?
Okay. When they bring in preliminary plans and then final plans through the process, they get reviewed by engineering and get approved by engineering administratively. This is a local street, as Preston said, 60 feet of right-of-way with a 32-foot street width. It wasn't designed as a collector, but that doesn't mean it doesn't collect traffic. It's still a local street. Traffic goes onto local streets, then they go onto minor collectors, then onto major collectors, then onto the arterial. So it was not designed as a collector, but just a local street.
Just looking at this, at the map, I can't see another way you would have gotten some collection to 95th other than here.
Yeah, and we've talked about this quite a bit this evening about streets connect, and in the old days, typically, we had the grid. Everything was north, south, east, and west. You get to new subdivisions, and you can even see in Cinnamon Ridge, it's not a grid system. There's cul-de-sacs, they dead end, they have curvilinear streets, and so it was a challenge. And again, Preston had a good design for how he wanted to do his large lot development.
Thank you, Jeff.
And Jeff, if I may, regarding, again, the requirements for collector streets, if we did get some kind of written agreement regarding the walking path, would that be sufficient enough to meet the minimum requirements, or is that still not?
It would definitely appease us.
And we can stipulate to that, Andy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because we're talking about having a connection.
Right.
Yep.
I just didn't know if that would be
Right.
sufficient enough. So if
Right.
that's the case, then I think that would be, okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions of Jeff? Okay. I'll look for commission action on item number 11.
Madam Chair, for the sake of discussion, I would make the motion to deny this request.
I'll second that.
And discussion on item number 11?
Well, it may be fine to create a cul-de-sac here and a walking path. So I don't, in all fairness to the developer to the west, I don't think we should be pushing that traffic through another subdivision. And there's still some residential land to be developed between the south edge of this subdivision and 95th, and we don't know what that looks like either. And so, you know, this is, we don't know what the bus routes are going to be for that school district either. And quite frankly, I just can't support a cul-de-sac if it means pushing traffic through someone else's neighborhood.
And with due respect, Meredith, we do not have final verification that a school is even going in.
True.
You know, so I hate to make that assumption and base our, you know, opinion upon that when that may not even come to fruition. So with that being said, if it meets the minimum requirements with that walking path installed, and understandably we haven't seen anything in writing, I think that would need to be something that would have to be shown, would then you...
But you're still pushing the traffic from the north to the west or to the east.
Extremely minimal, in my opinion. Again, if you don't have the school, you know, again, I think we're making assumptions here that aren't even in true to fact to this date. So therein lies my concern with the decision.
What I'm struggling with is a preliminary and a final development plan that was approved showing an exit point there. That the developer and obviously some of the homeowners would like to change. And I think that debate then becomes, okay, should we change it based on what has already been approved? Is that good planning? Irregardless of what goes to the south. That's what I'm really wrestling with. I know that that is an area of large lots. Typically, we see developments that want access to a school as quick as they can get it to help. I think this development's a little different than that. That's what I'm wrestling with.
Madam Chair, excuse me, Madam Chair, a little bit to what Andy was saying there. We can't look at this as, we don't know about the school. You're worried about the school. We're worried about the school. Why do they want to change it? Because they don't want the school traffic going there. Who knows if there's going to be a school? And to force people to get over to Louise, they've got to go down 90th through the other. If they're going to go to Louise, they're going to be forced through that other development versus just dropping down on the 95th and getting out that way. So, yeah, as you said, we brought up the school. Why do they want to change it? Because of the school, so we have to look at that. I mean, that's really the reason that they want to change it. From what I understood was because of the school. They didn't want all that traffic from the school coming into their development.
Any additional comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second for denial. Yep.
Just to clarify, since it's a motion for denial, you have to vote in approval to deny it.
Yes. So we'll signify by saying yes to approve the motion to deny. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, same sign. Same sign.
Yes.
Okay.
Say yes, say no.
Okay. So item number 11 is denied. Item number 12 has been withdrawn. Item number 13 is a conditional use permit in the RD district to allow a congregate care facility.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Dave Loveland, and I'm representing planning staff on this item.
The purpose of the conditional use permit is to approval is the applicant is requesting approval in order to construct a congregate care facility at 1404 East 5th Street. The area of the site is about 1/5 of an acre. The existing zoning is RD residential, and the existing land use is a single-family residential home that has not yet been demolished. Abutting zoning and land uses is RD to the north, south, east, and west with single-family homes with compatibility ratings of 4. And to go over the conditional use permit standard that we look at for congregate care facilities, it's assisted living center and congregate care facilities. Such uses shall be located in areas where their impact on adjacent properties would not be detrimental due to their large traffic flow or parking area. Such uses located in RS1, RS2, and RD residential districts shall have maximum building height limit of 2 stories. The applicant meets that standard. To go through this fairly quickly, on the setbacks and dimensions from the conditional use permit plan as required by the RD residential district. However, on August 16th, 2011, the Board of Adjustment approved a variance to allow a 5-foot side yard setback. Typically, when we consider anything other than a single-family home, you have a setback requirement of 15 feet. However, in this case, the applicant stated their case that they are representing a single-family home and have an impact similar to a single-family home, and the Board of Adjustment approved a setback as a single-family home then. The applicant has provided you with a letter from the Executive Director of Dakota Abilities that describes a little bit of their programming. In addition, as I noted, the applicants were granted a variance, and they conducted a neighborhood meeting to describe the project to surrounding property owners and can describe the conversations in greater detail. As of this date, our office has received no calls related to this item, and we have not heard of anything that would inhibit neighborhood support. So because this application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed and requires a complete plan check by Building and Zoning Services, we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dave? No. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Is the petitioner here tonight?
Good evening, Chris Torkelson, 1408 West Waterstone Drive, here on behalf of Lloyd Companies representing Dakota Abilities. We did have a neighborhood meeting. There was 2 individuals that I did speak with. One showed up to the neighborhood meeting. That's David Frisbee. He is directly to the east of this property. He left that meeting, I think, happy with what it is that we provided to him as far as information. And then the other showed up at the Board of Adjustment meeting. That's Linda Watts, and she would be to just the northwest of the property, and she seemed very favorable of the project after she left the Board of Adjustments meeting. So any other questions you might have, I'd be happy to answer.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Chris, how many of these have you done now?
This will be the 4th one for Dakota Abilities. We have done 2 for Southeastern Beaver Healthcare, and then we've done some others throughout the state for other nonprofit organizations.
So we've done 6 of these in the city now. This will be the
Correct.
7th?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Chris? No. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I will look for commission action on item number 13.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, recommend a motion of approval of item 13.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second for item number 13. All those in favor signify by saying yes. If there's any discussion on item 13, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 13 carries. Item number 14. We have a motion for,
Madam Chair, I make a recommendation for adjournment.
do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded for adjournment. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
I wasn't going to let Kenny start.